Hey guys, and welcome back to Raging Demons RPG. Of course, I'm Jared, if you hadn't caught the first few videos that I've put out there. And today we're going to be answering a question from CLACKCLICKBANG. He's a user that has messaged me a couple of times. This time he's given me a question though. You may be more familiar with his YouTube channel, A Gentleman's Guide to Gaming. And he has countless videos on the subject, whether it be online, tabletop. I think he's doing a lot more video game gameplay now and reviews. So I mean, he's a much more well-rounded individual than I am at this current point. But I want to discuss solely tabletop role-playing, and perhaps I'll branch out as time progresses. Anyway, his question basically was posed to me: what is the most immersive experience I've had in role-playing, and what is a character that I've put a lot of time and effort into? I want to tell you right now, the most immersive game I've ever been involved in has got to be the first Dungeons & Dragons campaign I ever ran, which is actually the first time I ever played Dungeons & Dragons. The first campaign I ran was with the group that would later evolve into the Raging Demons when we played Rifts. But they brought me into Dungeons & Dragons, and I already had a campaign that I used that was actually just a simple adventure in my Palladium Fantasy days. And what I'd done, because out of sheer frustration of not having a gaming group between the time I came back from Europe and the time that I met this group, I mean, that was about 4 to 5, 6 months. I just kept evolving this world. I actually made it, I used to tool around with the Warcraft 2 map editor and make it in there just to have some sort of physical representation of, this world, and just trying to experiment with how it would progress and evolve and breathe, etc. So when I got this group, I was very excited, and the world had already been flushed out pretty well, so I jumped right in head first, and it was a lot of fun. It carried on for months, almost a year from what I recall, and it was the same cast of characters that played throughout. I think there might have been a few changes in the lineup over time, but oh my god, this was by far, it's like, it's my it's the game I refer to when I try and think of a good game to create again. I mean, if I want to run another game, this is the game I refer back to. It was just that good. In fact, in my own role-playing book that I'm creating, it's a fantasy book as well, this game is often what I refer to in my mind when I'm trying to keep true to what is purely fun about a role-playing game. It was a lot of fun. It culminated with a showdown between of course, the heroic characters, some of which who were not really that heroic, but compared to the villain, they were saints. Versus the villain and his armies, and they had raised their own armies, and it was all very epic and Tolkien-esque in a way, and they clashed, and the heroes came out on top. Not because I really wanted them to, but I mean, I was playing the villain. I was a little invested. I was going to make sure that they would have to fight tooth and nail. Actually, the end clash resulted in the leader of the party dying at the hands of the villain shortly after he himself slew the villain. So there was a little bit of a tragedy in that victory, and of course that I felt it necessary, just through old mythology and just tales I've watched and heard over my life, to make that hero ascend to be some sort of a demigod, or actually ascend to be a god on this world, as they had no pantheon to speak of. So that really went well, and it really worked out for the better. And I mean, once we shut the door on that particular campaign, it was referred to for quite a while until Rifts basically occupied our lives and our minds. Now, as far as characters are concerned, I very rarely get to play. In the 15 years I've DM'd, ran games, I very rarely have been a player. I maybe spent less than a week total game session time being a player. So any opportunity I get to do that actually does help. But the ones I remember significantly, and some of my players can remember this character as well, was a halfling barbarian I once played named Rum Pump Thunderfoot. He was not particularly in the stats category and the attributes category. He was not built to be a barbarian. He would have been probably a much better thief, or a much better village idiot. He was really just an underdog character, and he was blissfully unaware of the outside world, but would never let anybody know. So he claimed himself to be the greatest fighter in all of the world, and also he pretended to know everything about everything. I'm sure you even have friends that do this. They talk completely out of their ass about things that they've obviously never experienced. So, like, for example, the elf was constantly correcting Rum Pum whenever I would refer to the elf as an ogre, because that's what I thought an ogre looked like. And it just, of course, it hurt the flimsy, fragile sensibilities of our high elf, and he just wanted to, like, at times probably slit my throat. But he was a good character, so he couldn't do it. Alright, so I had a few memorable NPCs, and perhaps I'll get into those in later installments. I don't like to prattle on about my own games too much unless I'm referring to something, like to put it into context. It's only because if you've ever been around somebody who tries to tell you about their game or a movie that they've watched that you don't particularly find that interesting, it can kind of grind on you a little bit. Or when you ask somebody about how their day is and they tell you about the weather instead, to me that's the equivalent of somebody talking to me about their gaming sessions when I was never involved in their gaming sessions. That's, it annoys me at times. I like to swap these tales, I like to hear them, but I always get the feeling that what's really interesting for me is not interesting at all for anybody else. So I don't want to rub anybody the wrong way. I just wanted to use one example in the case of Rum Pump Thunderfoot as a character, and later on I'll do some NPC background story and discussion separate, so that way those that are interested, namely my players who are now subscribed to this channel, can kind of reminisce and have that little nostalgia time. But those that are not really involved and not particularly interested can just skip over it. So, but with saying that, I bring this video to a close. I hope everybody is gaming this weekend if they have the opportunity. It sure beats being bored around the house, that's for sure. Or recording videos for your YouTube channel. So anyway, have a good day. Keep those dice rolling, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.